Do some review in forensic science. It's on blood and blood spatter analysis. Really, this part is mostly on blood. You've already had notes on this, so I'm going to make this a quick review. If you were absent from class and you missed the conversation during the notes, this would be beneficial for you to watch also. All right, so let's take a look and see what we can figure out here. I'm going to try and move quickly. Okay. I'm going to label this, and I encourage you to take notes. Go right ahead. You write things down. You do the drawings, the diagrams. You'll remember it. Okay. We're going to label it blood and blood spatter analysis 1, review notes. And I'm also going to add, this is also lab preparation or lab prep. We're going to be using this material. We're going to build on it for some of the labs that we have coming up in class. Best way to review something, I think, is to start with some questions. And the first question I think we should pose is, what is blood? Well, we know it's a highly specialized tissue. We've talked about that it has more than 4,000 components. But I think the biggest star that you want to put in there, that there are 4 most important components. And I think if you rack your brain a little bit, you can come up with them. They are red blood cells, which I think we're going to label from now on RBCs. That way it'll save us some time with writing. We also have white blood cells, which we're going to label WBCs. That'll make things a little bit easier for us, I think. The third major component of blood are platelets. And never fear, we will talk about what each of these things do. And the fourth major component, and it actually makes up the largest percentage of blood, is plasma. Those are the 4 major components in blood out of more than 4,000 components. Let's take a look at my little vial here. If we were going to break blood down, red blood cells, RBCs, okay, they comprise about 45% of our blood. Okay. And then in here we have this little blue line, and we're going to say that WBCs and platelets, that only comprises less than 1% of our blood. Very small amount. Okay. And then the rest of it, this would be the plasma. Okay. And the plasma makes up about 55% of our blood. Okay. So hang on one second and let's take a look and see what all of these things do, which would be my second question. Okay, so question number 2 is, why are these components important? Or more importantly maybe, is what is the function what's its purpose? What is the function of these components? Okay, that's the question we're going to answer. Let's take a look at red blood cells first, RBCs. Okay, these guys are very important because they transport, and you know this, oxygen from where? The lungs to the body tissues. And they carry carbon dioxide or CO2 away. After all, carbon dioxide is a waste product. Okay, have to get rid of it. You should be aware that red blood cells, or RBCs, 95% of an RBC is a protein called hemoglobin. Okay, let me make sure you can get this in here and see everything. If you have to pause the video to take your notes, you should. Okay. Hemoglobin, and this is going to become really important, and I'll tell you where in just a second, but hemoglobin, it's an iron-rich red pigment, and this is what gives your blood its red color, the hemoglobin. It's an iron-rich red pigment that binds and carries, you guessed it, oxygen. Okay? This is very important. When I say iron-rich, this is going to be important when we, let's see, becomes important. This is a forensic science class after all, so we're going to look at it, why it becomes important with forensic science. Forensic science, excuse me. When we discuss finding blood stains that have been cleaned up, in other words, someone's trying to hide something, and they try and clean up the blood to try and destroy evidence. Okay? This, we're going to, just for now, mention the word or the chemical luminol, and we will address that a little bit later on. Okay? So this is a diagram of red blood cells. I encourage you to draw this. They are not hollow, but if you were to take a piece of Play-Doh and roll it up and then into a ball and sort of pinch it in the middle so you'd get a hollowed out center. Okay? That's red blood cells. You should know that they do not have a nucleus. Okay? No nucleus in a red blood cell. So, let me ask you this. Can you obtain DNA from a red blood cell for DNA profiling? We'll answer that in just a little bit. Okay, so that's question 2. What's the function of the red blood cells? Quick review. They transport oxygen from the lungs to the body tissues, and they carry carbon dioxide away. The way they do this is by the protein called hemoglobin. That's actually a pigment, too. It's red. It's iron-rich red pigment that binds and carries oxygen. Okay, and I said this becomes really important when we start looking for blood stains that may have been cleaned up. And I mentioned the chemical luminol. Okay, so there's red blood cells, no nucleus, which means no DNA. Okay, that is question 2. Let's take a quick look at question 3. Or not question 3, but white blood cells. Okay. White blood cells are larger than red blood cells. They do contain a nucleus. Okay. and this is what I was asking you before, white blood cells are the only blood component with a nucleus, and they can be used as a source of DNA for profiling. And we've talked about DNA profiling already in this class. Okay? But what's their function? What is their main function? They seek out and destroy. They seek out and destroy foreign substances like viruses. Can you think of another one? Bacteria. Good job. Okay. Or other foreign elements. Fungi. Blood that doesn't belong to your blood type, which we'll talk about. Okay? There's different kinds. There's different types. I want to go back and stress that. Some release antibodies. Okay? Which aid in immune response. And some of them engulf, swallow them up, and digest foreign elements. Okay, make sure you can get everything in focus. I'll let you catch up on your notes. Press pause if you have to, and we'll move on. So far the components of in blood, the four major components were red blood cells, white blood cells, which we just talked about, and now we're on to platelets. Okay. Platelets are involved in repairing damaged blood vessels. Okay. You get a cut in your arm and you're bleeding. Platelets come to the area. That's these here. Let me zoom in a little bit. Okay. Come to the area. They're irregularly shaped, so they clot up around the cut. And what happens is we get this protein that kind of spins in off around these platelets. That is called fibrin. Okay. And it catches red blood cells and it creates what we know as a clot. And if it scabs over, that is the clot. And if you scratch it open, all this has to start all over again. Okay? So platelets are involved in repairing damaged blood vessels. They arrive to help if you've been cut. All right, last component of blood. Do you remember what it was? It's plasma. Okay? And plasma is a straw-colored medium or fluid, something that other things flow in. And the biggest thing to remember, the function is that it carries antibodies, which assist in the immune system. It carries hormones, which are very important and we haven't talked about, but like I said, you've had biology before. It carries clotting factors, which we just talked about. And it carries nutrients like glucose, which we know we need for cellular respiration, for example. Okay, so that's the quick review of blood, what it is, what the major components are, and what their functions are. And also this will prep you for your pre-lab questions on the next lab we have coming up. Okay.